Hello, and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. What I've been doing in the last couple of segments is to talk to you about questions that I get about music, such as when are children old enough to learn how to play, what should their physical condition be, and so forth. And I'm going to continue with that today. And I also bring in instruments to you that you might not normally see, and I've been doing that for quite a while. And I have a few left to show you, but today I decided to bring in my nose flute. This is an actual nose flute, and it's supposed to play. Now, it's more or less a novelty item. I've never really quite mastered it. I have a picture over here that I'm going to be showing you in a minute, but let me just show you this first. This is the outside of the nose flute, and you turn it around, and this is the part that's on your face. And if you will notice, there is, I don't know if you can pick this up or not, a little slit right there that you actually can blow your nose with it. I mean, that's the area that goes around your nose. This area here is around your mouth. So the way you place it on yourself, and of course you have to hold it with your hand, is you have to hold it like this, the top part over your nose, and the bottom part over your mouth. Your mouth stays open. This is kind of slanted to go around your mouth, more or less like that. I'm not actually going to try to play it. And you breathe through this indentation. So what I have here, and I'll show it to you, I did a drawing of a person who has a nose flute. Now, it looks odd. It is odd. And I drew it a little larger than necessary, maybe, but I wanted you to see there's a little lip right here. It swings around your mouth. A little squarish part is around your lips, and then you are breathing, although you can't see it, through the indentation, which I showed you right here, which I don't know if you're able to catch it or not. And what happens when you do that, when you blow it like that, you actually can get tones. And what happens is that I think it sounds more or less like a kazoo when you actually play it or sing into it or whatever. So your nose is breathing, your lips are open, your lips will vibrate, and it's over your mouth. It looks like you're in a surgical uniform headed for the operating table, but that's not the case. And there's a little lip on the bottom of it. So this is supposed to play. Somebody gave it to me as a gift. I've never quite mastered it. I'm not going to try it now, but I thought I'd show it to you because it is a legitimate instrument. And it's not just a toy. It's kind of a novelty item, but it is a legitimate instrument. So that is my nose flute. You will not see me playing it anytime soon. I'm not crazy about it, but it actually is an instrument. So the instructions: press the nose flute firmly against the nose and mouth. Hold the mouth open. Blow through the nose only. So you have to keep your mouth open and only blow through your nose. No air coming out of your mouth, only your nose, even though your mouth is open. And don't allow any air to escape around the edges of the flute. And you use your hand to hold it in place. I imagine with your mouth open and breathing through your nose that your mouth kind of acts like a voice box. That's what I'm assuming. And it's not highly sophisticated, but it is an instrument, so I thought I would bring that in. Now, to continue with what we were doing, in terms of people asking me questions about music and the answers that I give them, I'm going to continue with that. So I have here a list. I don't know if you can remember what I've done before, but I've been asked questions as to how old children need to be before they can take lessons. I've talked to you about their physical condition, if they're wearing braces, if they have asthma. It's a big difference. You need to talk with a doctor. I have the parents check with a doctor to see if a child is able to play. I've talked to you about the fact that a child should probably be about 9 years old before they start lessons anyway, because their fingers aren't aren't strong enough and aren't large enough to even do keyboard stuff. And then, of course, with a mouthpieces with a brass, you put your mouthpiece right up to your mouth, and if you don't have teeth or the teeth have fallen out like they do in about 6 years old, then that's not a good idea. And with flutes, you have the mouthpiece right up to where the bottom braces would be. So, or if a person has asthma or any other condition, you really have to check with a physician to see if they're all right. So I've been going through those series of questions. And so what do you need to have in an instrument to make sure the instrument is okay? What would you want if you're choosing an instrument? What characteristics should the instrument have? Well, it's good to have a good brand name, but you can't always go by that. Sometimes you can get a lemon in a good brand name, and sometimes you can get a brand name that's awful and it plays beautifully. So that's certainly not the only criteria. My father, when I started playing clarinet, my teacher, a saxophone teacher, thought he wanted me to start playing clarinet. My father paid $25 for a clarinet. What could possibly go wrong, as a saying goes? Well, the clarinet was a DuPont Superior. No one's ever heard of a DuPont Superior. It was made overseas someplace, but it turned out to be the nicest clarinet. I loved it. It was perfect pitch. It was perfect in every way. Every game that I played, football games, concerts, it was like glued to my hip. The only problem was, after years of playing, and I truly loved it, and it truly was a good instrument, although people would look at it and say, I've never heard of a DuPont Superior. No one ever had. It suddenly fell apart. A whole section of keys just dropped off from it. I tried to get it repaired, and I couldn't get it repaired because nothing was standard size. None of the keys were standard size. None of the pads were standard size, and yet it played beautifully. So a well-known name is actually a help. It needs to pitch to A440. It needs to pitch with itself. Now, some instruments don't do well with that, and I'm going to show you. Well, let's see. Here's an instrument that's an orange instrument. It's obviously a recorder, and it doesn't come apart. It looks like it can come apart. It doesn't come apart, but let's check the pitches on it. Pretty good. Now I played an octave up, and it's just not in pitch at all. The higher octave is not in pitch. So, and that's the way it goes on like that. So in a less expensive instrument, what you tend to get is higher notes not in pitch and lower notes not in pitch either. If I play this one does not come apart. It's beautiful to look at. I love the color. And it does play some notes right. And other notes are a little off. See, it flattens. You can't even get some of the higher notes. Now, this is a very inexpensive instrument, but even the good instruments, you have to check because sometimes they don't work very well like that. Well, what about this little guy? That's already flat on top. That doesn't even hit the high note. I'm fingering it right. So you have to be careful to make sure that an instrument not only plays well on the lower register, but they play well and pitch with themselves. They have to sound well as a solo instrument. They have to be easy to blow into. Fortunately, that's not much of a problem with recorders, but you have to be able to have enough air to do it. Some instruments are notably hard to blow. They have to be able to be repaired, And they have to be able to play octaves well, which I showed you some of them don't. They have to be able to transition to notes easily without squeaking. That is a problem with some instruments, and I don't know if I can make this do us or not, but this is a little first note, bright red, and very nice instrument for the most part, but to do octaves in rapid succession, it's very easy to squeal it. There are some squeals. You can hear some of the squeals. A really, really good instrument doesn't squeal like that. Now, on clarinets and other instruments, you can expect them to squeal somewhat. It's the nature of the instrument because you have to have your hands right over the notes perfectly, and if you can't do that, you're likely to squeal. Okay, let's see. The dynamics, loud and soft. You should be able to get dynamics which are loud and soft, different volumes without difficulty. They have to have good quality sound, not too shrill, and they can't get too flat on the high notes, which is a problem with inexpensive instruments, and they have to blend with other instruments. So that's one of the things you have to remember. Now, I've said this before. Do not use other people's instruments, and do not let other people use yours. And there's a good reason for that. First of all, it's a sanitation problem, and so you don't want to get other people's colds and so forth. But even in teaching, when I was teaching my students, I usually did not check their instruments, or if they were playing well with them, I didn't use their instruments. But the only time I would use a student's instruments is if I had to check it. When they first got it, I would use it for the purpose of making sure it was all right, did all the notes come in, because students aren't able to play all the notes anyway, so they can't check it. I would have to check it to make sure all the notes were okay, that it was blending, that it was doing the things that instruments should do. So I would do that. Then, of course, I would disinfect it and then hand the instrument back to the child, and then probably not touch it again unless there was a problem. A child couldn't get a note right, was something wrong with the instrument, had something gone wrong, and so I would check it only if it needed to be checked. Otherwise, I did not use a child's instrument on a regular basis, and they did not use mine on a regular basis. There was always the exception to the rule, but not often. Now, how do you sanitize instruments? Well, I'm going to show you. The correct way to sanitize an instrument, you need to get some alcohol, rubbing alcohol, in a very soft cloth. A handy wipe is okay. Just cut a small square. And then you would pull the instrument apart. This is by Guermont Piccolo. You would need to rub the alcohol around areas where the pads are not and the keys are not, where they are joined together. So I would rub around here. I'd rub a little in the inside, always around the mouthpiece, because that's where you really have a need to keep an instrument sanitized. And around here where the joints go together, and a little down here. Now this piccolo goes into, it has two parts to it. Some instruments have more than that. You would pull the instrument apart and just clean around the mouthpiece with the alcohol. Then let it dry. Just let it dry naturally. It won't take long. Never, never, never put alcohol on any pads, and this is the reason I brought this instrument in. I don't know if you can see this or not, but there's a pad underneath each key. I can't get them to open up any more than they're opened up, but maybe you can see pads underneath each key. Maybe, well, that's not going to help either. Just for you to see that. It will destroy the pads and you'll have a big repair job on your hand. Never put alcohol on any wood. Now, let's see, I have a wooden instrument. How would I clean it? I wouldn't use alcohol at all. It would split the wood, and then you wouldn't be able to play it again. I might use a little warm water just to rub it off with, and that proves you should not be handing off instruments to other people. There's really no way to sanitize this because of the fact that it is wood. I brought in one of my conical flutes. This is a conical. That means it comes to a point. It's not straight all the way down like some of the penny whistles are, but this is a wooden plugged conical. So where the block would be in a recorder, there's a whole wooden plug in here. That's a part of the mouthpiece. If you touch that with alcohol, that's going to split, and you're not going to be able to play the instrument. The reason for this plug, there's a little space on top of the plug where the air actually goes that you're blowing in, and it has labium, the kinds of things that recorders have. But what it does is that it makes the tone soft. It doesn't have quite the volume that a regular recorder has. It's a very nice instrument, but you would not be able to put alcohol on that wooden plug. It would not work. This is a Clark's, and it was made in Great Britain. Okay, now, you use, as I said, you use a little rubbing alcohol. You can use the rubbing alcohol on plastic and metal and hard rubber. You cannot use it on any cork, which I don't happen to have here. I don't have an instrument with cork in it. And you can't use it on wood or anything where it would cause an injury. It will split the wood. So you use a little warm water, and that's all you can do for it. So, where would you store an instrument? That's another thing. Instruments should be kept, if you're not using them, they should be kept in a case. And the best thing to put them in is a hard case. My hard case, this is my piccolo case, and it's hard. Very little can happen to an instrument if it's in the hard case. And in the inside, and I've opened it up, it should be soft. So the instrument, when you pull it apart, fits exactly where it's supposed to fit, and it's soft. And when you close it up, it's not going to shake, it's not going to move, it's going to have softness around it, and it'll be protected by a hard cover. These hard covers are more important than you might think. I had a student with a flute, a new flute. She loved the flute. She had been doing well on flute lessons. Her parents decided to surprise her and give her a flute. Now, one day she came in with her mother, and she's crying, and her mother's angry. She can't find the flute. She has no idea where that flute went. And they've hunted everywhere. The flute is just plain missing, a brand new flute. So they don't know where that flute is, and she's crying because she's missing her flute. Well, for that lesson, I let her use my flute, of course. My flute was the only one available. And oftentimes when I taught lessons, I would bring two flutes or two instruments with me in case something happened and mine needed to be used. But what happened with her flute was she was at a bus stop. Several schools used this bus stop to pick up students, and it had been snowing. She put her instrument down, waiting for the bus. When the bus came, she forgot to pick it back up, and she got on the bus without the flute. It was at the bus stop. And snow came, it was a bad storm, and it was all covered up with snow. She didn't see it, no one would see it. Finally, a principal drove by, and he saw this little thing sticking up out of the snow. And he said he thought it was a child's lunchbox. So he stopped to pick it up, and it happened to be her flute. The only reason he knew it was her flute is that she had her name, address, and phone number in the inside of the case, as well as the outside. I don't think she had anything on the outside of the case. It was the hard case that protected it. The flute was fine. So I would suggest if you have a child that's playing with an instrument, you don't know, they're forgetful. They might leave a flute flute somewhere, have them put their name, address, and phone number on the inside of the case, so in case it is lost and somebody picks it up, they'll be able to know who it belongs to. So if you are playing and you're going to stop playing for a few minutes, then you can put the flute or any instrument down on a table someplace. It doesn't matter as long as it's not in a position where it's going to roll off, and as long as it's not in a position where somebody inadvertently is going to put something on top of it. It's best in the case. And you need to have it stored in even room temperature. You should never have an instrument stored in the attic or in the cellar where it's intensely cold, whether it's intensely hot, or never on a windowsill because the sun streams in and heats it up. It needs to be in even room temperature, in a closet, in a corner, on a table. Don't let it get too hot. Don't let it get too cold. You can really destroy an instrument if you do that. So, I'm going to close it here because we don't have much time left. I don't have too much more to go, but a little more than what we have time. So I'll finish with this next segment, and then we'll go on in terms of how do you play, how do you learn how to play, what are the fingerings, what's the tonguing, and all of that kind of information that you need if you're a new student. So we'll close it here. Please join me next time.